Newton's second law of motion. The first law refers to the simple case when the net external force on the body is zero. The second law of motion refers to the general situation when there is a net external force acting on the body. It relates the net external force to the acceleration of the body. Momentum. Momentum of a body is defined to be the product of its mass m and velocity v and is denoted by p. P equals m into v. Momentum is clearly a vector quantity. The following common experiences indicate the importance of this quantity for considering the effect of force on motion. Suppose a lightweight vehicle, say a small car, and a heavyweight vehicle, say a loaded truck, are parked on a horizontal road. We all know that a much greater force is needed to push the truck than the car to bring them to the same speed in the same time. Similarly, a greater opposing force is needed to stop a heavy body than a light body in the same time if they are moving with the same speed. If two stones, one light and the other heavy, are dropped from the top of a building, a person on the ground will find it easier to catch the light stone than the heavy stone. The mass of the body is thus an important parameter that determines the effect of force on its motion. Speed is another important parameter to consider. A bullet fired by a gun can easily pierce human tissue before it stops, resulting in a casualty. The same bullet fired with moderate speed will not cause much damage. Thus, for a given mass, the greater the speed, the greater is opposing force needed to stop the body in a certain time. Taken together, the product of mass and velocity, that is momentum, is evidently a relevant variable of motion. The greater the change in the momentum in a given time, the greater is a force that needs to be applied. A seasoned cricketer catches a cricket ball coming in with a great speed far more easily than a novice, who can hurt his hand in the act. One reason is that the cricketer allows longer time for his hand to stop the ball. As you may have noticed, he draws in the hands backward in the act of catching the ball. Figure 5.3. The novice, on the other hand, keeps his hand fixed and tries to catch the ball almost instantly. He needs to provide a much greater force to stop the ball instantly, and this hurts. The conclusion is clear. Force not only depends on the change in momentum, but also on how fast the change is brought about. The same change in momentum brought about in a shorter time needs a greater applied force. In short, the greater the rate of change of momentum, the greater is the force. Figure 5.3. Force not only depends on the change in momentum, but also on how fast the change is brought about. A seasoned cricketer draws his hand during a catch, allowing greater time for the ball to stop and hence requires a smaller force. Observations confirm that the product of mass and velocity, that is momentum, is basic to the effect of force on motion. Suppose a fixed force is applied for a certain interval of time on two bodies of different masses. Initially at rest, the lighter body picks up a greater speed than a heavier body. However, at the end of the time interval, observations show that each body acquires the same momentum. Thus, the same force for the same time causes the same change in momentum for different bodies. This is a crucial clue to the second law of motion. In the preceding observations, the vector character of momentum has not been evident. In the example so far, momentum and change in momentum both have the same direction, but this is not always the case. Suppose a stone is rotated with uniform speed in a horizontal plane by means of a string. The magnitude of momentum is fixed, but its direction changes. Figure 5.4. A force is needed to cause this change in momentum vector. This force is provided by our hand through the string. Experience suggests that our hand needs to exert a greater force if the stone is rotated at greater speed or in a circle of smaller radius, or both. This corresponds to the greater acceleration or equivalently a greater rate of change in momentum vector. This suggests that the greater the rate of change in momentum vector, the greater is the force applied. Figure 5.4. Force is necessary for changing the direction of momentum, even if its magnitude is constant. We can feel this while rotating a stone in a horizontal circle with uniform speed by means of string. These qualitative observations lead to the second law of motion expressed by Newton as follows. The rate of change of momentum of a body is directly proportional to the applied force and takes place in the direction in which the force acts. Thus, if under the action of a force F for time interval delta t, the velocity of a body of mass m changes from v to v plus delta v, that is, its initial momentum p equals mv changes by delta p equals m into delta v. According to the second law, force is directly proportional to delta p by delta t, or F equals k into delta p by delta t, where k is a constant of proportionality. Taking the limit delta t tends to 0, the term delta p by delta t becomes the derivative or differential coefficient of p with respect to t, denoted by dp by dt. Thus, F equals k into dp by dt. For a body of fixed mass m, dp by dt equals d into mv by dt, which equals m into dv by dt, which equals m into a. That is, the second law can also be written as F equals k into ma, which shows that force is proportional to the product of mass m and acceleration a. The unit of force has not been defined so far. In fact, we use equation 5.4 to define the unit of force. We therefore have the liberty to choose any constant value for k. For simplicity, we choose k equals 1. The second law then is F equals dp by dt, which equals m into a. In SI unit, force is one that causes an acceleration of 1 meter per second square to a mass of 1 kg. This unit is known as Newton. 1 Newton equals 1 kg meter per second square. Let us note that at this stage some important points about the second law. 1. In the second law, F equals 0 implies A equals 0. The second law is obviously consistent with the first law. The second law of motion is a vector law. It is equivalent to 3 equations, one for each component of the vector. Fx equals dpx by dt, which equals m into ax. Fy equals dpy by dt, which equals m into ay. Fz equals dpz by dt, which equals m into az. This means that if a force is not parallel to the velocity of the body but makes some angle with it, it changes only the component of velocity along the direction of force. The component of velocity normal to the force remains unchanged. For example, in the motion of a projectile under the vertical gravitational force, the horizontal component of velocity remains unchanged. Figure 5.5. The second law of motion given by equation 5.5 is applicable to a single point particle. The force F in the law stands for the net external force on the particle and A stands for acceleration of the particle. It turns out, however, that the law in the same form applies to a rigid body or even more generally to a system of particles. In that case, F refers to a total external force on the system and A refers to the acceleration of the system as a whole. More precisely, A is the acceleration of the center of mass of the system, about which we shall study in detail in chapter 7. Any internal forces in the system are not to be included in F. Figure 5.5. Acceleration at an instant is determined by the force at that instant. The moment after a stone is dropped out of an accelerated train, it has no horizontal acceleration or force. If air resistance is neglected, the stone carries no memory of its acceleration with the train a moment ago. The second law of motion is a local relation, which means that force F at a point in space, location of the particle, at a certain instant of time is related to A at that point at that instant. Acceleration here and now is determined by the force here and now, not by any history of the motion of the particle. See figure 5.5. Impulse. We sometimes encounter examples where a large force acts for a very short duration, producing a finite change in momentum of the body. For example, when a ball hits a wall and bounces back, the force on the ball by the wall acts for a very short time when the two are in contact. Yet the force is large enough to reverse the momentum of the ball. Often, in these situations, the force and the time duration are difficult to ascertain separately. However, the product of force and time, which sees the change in momentum of the body, remains a measurable quantity. This product is called impulse. Impulse equals force into time duration, which equals change in momentum. A large force acting for a short time to produce a finite change in momentum is called an impulsive force. In the history of science, impulsive forces were put in a conceptually different category from ordinary forces. Newtonian mechanics has no such distinction. Impulsive force is like any other force except that it is large and acts for a short time.